Hey guys, I'm Angela and welcome back to Hobby Night. This week I was going to paint Sigvald, but because of the storm hitting America, our shipments have been delayed. So instead, I have this Jazza's Mega Mini box that I got a little while ago, and I thought it would be fun to play with some of the stuff that I got in here. The Jazza's Mega Mini Box was a box basically where you got a bunch of different miniatures components in there, including like flock, paint, brushes, a wet palette, but also, and more excitingly in my opinion, some Puppetswar custom Space Marine miniatures that are specifically called the Jazzy Strikers because there's one that has Jazza's face in here, which is pretty cool. But this is a really awesome box where basically this company makes a bunch of custom done miniatures in resin, but they also come with magnets and a slot for that magnet to go into. So because I have never magnetized anything previously, I thought this would be a great way for me to try it out and honestly get some really cool, unique sculpts for my hobby nights. So without further ado, let's go to the hobby table and magnetize some miniatures. I wanted to begin by showing you the test mini I did before starting this project because while I think it's going to be very cool to show you my first time ever magnetizing, I did want to have a little bit of preparation to make sure that I had the correct tools. Turns out I didn't quite have the correct tools. I certainly did not have the correct glue, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I also just wanted to see how it was going to work so I wasn't going in 100% blind, and I had a little bit of an idea of what I was doing. And I really like these miniatures because as you can see, they connect in a couple of the joints, the shoulders and then the arms, and then they have a bunch of weapon options that you can add on for the hands. So there's a lot of cool options for this, and let's go ahead and talk about my process a little bit and about some of the things that I ran into first that maybe didn't work. So when I began this, I thought that I had the proper glue for this project because these miniatures are resin and obviously the magnets are metal, so plastic glues, which is all that I actually had on hand, aren't going to work. Now I did still go ahead and try them just because at one point I felt like I had gotten resin to glue together using plastic glue, but the metal just wouldn't stick. So I needed to find another solution to basically get this project going. And I went back to the Jazza's Mega Mini Box for that solution because we're going to be using Milliput for it. Let's go ahead and take a look now at what actually came in the Puppetswar kit that came in Jazza's Mega Mini Box. And there's some really cool stuff in here. So it comes with 5 torsos, which all are really cool. It's got the slots in the shoulders as well as a spot on the backpack for the backpack accessory. Then it's got 11 unique heads, including one that is of Jazza's face, actually his face, which is really, really cool. Honestly, that is a dream goal of mine to have somebody be able to sculpt my face so that I can put it on a miniature, probably a Sister of Battle or something, or maybe a Demon Prince. Be a very tiny head though, that'd be awkward. But there's a lot of really cool heads in here. I specifically pick out, I think the skull. There's one that kind of reminds me of a assassin head. I think I pick the 2 knight heads as well as I do use Jazza's head because, I thought that would be kind of fun. Now, there's also 5 bases for these guys to stand upon, as well as a variety of other things, including 2 backpack accessories, some really cool wings that I'm planning on using as maybe for a sanguinary priest or just as an alternate very fancy jump pack, as well as a banner that you can put on the back of the flag. Maybe I'll create it like a logo for the Hobby Nights and put it on that. That way they can run with their banner. There's also 12 shoulder pads, so they do give you some extras so that you can kind of mix and match and do something unique. Now, I'm not using the shoulder pads yet in this video. I will be attaching those later because I do want to paint these guys, and I kind of figured it might be easier just to do those separately and then attach them once I have some good glue that will glue resin to resin. So we're gonna hold off on those, and that's why they're still in the baggie. There's also 10 arms, 5 for the left and 5 for the right, as well as 9 hands options, which include either just hands that aren't holding things. The thumbs up is one of my favorites, classic. There's also hands holding things, including weapons, but also there's one that kind of looks like a pallet. I think it's a visor for having your mission loadout or anything on there. But that's really cool. And there's lots of cool options here. And that is honestly the thing that had me the most excited about this kit, is just all these various bits that I can then magnetize and swap and everything. That's the coolest part about it, right? And then that's pretty much it. I really like everything that came in this. Like I said, I want to look at their website more because I think they have other really cool options, and maybe there's some other unique stuff that I could build through the Puppetswar things. One thing to keep in mind with these miniatures is that occasionally the holes that the magnets are supposed to go into can get filled with resin, and that's not to be unexpected, and I had one of them happen to me here, so I went ahead and pulled out my Army Painter drill bit, and using the bit that is meant for a 3mm magnet, or the 3mm size, I went ahead and just re-drilled out that hole so that the magnet would fit perfectly. And honestly, I did not know that that bit was the exact size for the magnet, but it worked out really, really well, and actually, there's another bit that I have that works for the small ones too. So honestly, it's great. It's a 2mm size, and I know it's planned that way, but I wasn't expecting it, so I was very pleased when it happened.
Oh, hey, didn't see you guys there. Well, while you're here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video.
As I said, I'm going to be using Milliput for this project instead of glues, and how you use Milliput is it's a 2-part epoxy that you can see it comes in 2 pieces here, and we're going to take it in equal parts and then mix it together until it is thoroughly mixed. There are 0 streaks and it's one solid color. That is very important when using this stuff. It makes sure that it properly cures and it actually functions the way that it's supposed to. Now, I do also have another product called Magic Sculpt, which I've used in the past on the channel, and it's basically a very similar type product. It's also in a 2-part epoxy like Milliput, but it has a little bit of a longer cure time than Milliput does. Milliput's only supposed to take about 3 to 4 hours to cure, whereas Magic Sculpt in my experience takes like 12 hours to fully cure. So I opted for the Milliput instead, and it works mostly. We do still have some problems with it, and after I get some stuff mixed up, well, I have some other solutions that I have in the future, but this is a really cool project and I'm happy with where it ends up going. And the Milliput works really, really well. I end up making actually a bit more than I needed for this video and everything. So I end up using the rest of it for gap filling. And I actually really liked this product for gap filling over, say, green stuff and the Magic Sculpt that I've used in the past. It's a little bit softer and I just felt like it went into the crevices a little bit more smoothly. So another added bonus of doing this project. All right, it is time now to actually start magnetizing my Space Marines. And for that, I'm going to be referencing my test mini to make sure that I get my polarization correct, because that is probably the most important thing when magnetizing your miniatures, because otherwise their arms won't actually attach. And for the most part, I did this very, very well, except for this very first miniature that you see me working on. I completely reversed the polarity because I was paying more attention to the markings I had done on the magnets to try to give myself an additional guide than actually following my test mini, and so I borked it up. Now, thankfully, I was able to salvage this with some other things that ended up happening on through the process, and we'll get to those in a little bit, but I have arms that will attach to him, and all of the hands with the weapon options will still work for this mini, and all of the 4 other guys also have functionable arms. So the squad still works. It's just that I did mess up this one polarity, so be careful when you're dealing with magnets because you don't want to bork that up. Next up, we're going to move on to working on the arms because these are still attached to their sprue, and while they were there, I thought it would be good to work on honestly the smaller magnets while some of the bigger ones were curing and everything. So we're going to use even less Milliput than we had before, and this is where I might have started to have a little bit of a problem. There were a few magnets when everything was dried after I'd done all of my filming, got everything done, that at the end, after they had cured, they sort of pulled out still, and I had to redo it. The arms in particular were one of the ones that I had this problem with because I did a few of them much later in the process. And so I think my Milliput had started to harden a little bit and I had some of them pull out. Now that's not that big of a deal because they actually came out really clean and I was able to get them back in, but it is something to pay attention to with this particular product. The accessories also get the small magnets, and at this point, I was definitely following my test mini specifically and only my test mini because I was very worried and nervous about my polarization, because at this point, I hadn't actually discovered that I'd messed up that first torso. But subconsciously, I was very worried that I was going to make a mistake, and so I just wanted to make sure that I was as accurate as possible. So literally each time I put a new magnet in, I had it facing the test mini's magnet appropriately so that I could get the polarization correctly. That may not make a whole lot of sense in retrospect, but when you're doing this, it sort of does. Basically, I wanted to have the one side connected to the side that was facing the same direction. It worked out really well, actually, because like I said, I only had that one mess up, and I'm really glad that I did it this way, and this is how I'm going to be doing it going forward through every miniature or magnetization project that I do. I had gotten through all of the arms, I was feeling pretty good about where I was, and then I remembered I need to do the backpacks, because there are 2 backpack options, and I think it'd be cool for them to be able to carry some of those with them. So we pulled back out the large magnets and made sure to get the backpacks done. Now, earlier in the video, I mentioned that my Milliput did kind of start to dry out a little bit, and the backpacks specifically were the biggest culprit of this problem. Basically 2 or 3 of the backpack magnets that I put in near the end, because my Milliput had essentially started to cure too much already and kind of had hardened so much that I wasn't having any tackiness left to it, they just popped back out. Then what the beautiful thing happened is I was going through, I was looking up, cleaning some things, and then I found a beautiful bottle of Zap-A-Gap. And so, to fix this problem the next day after I had let everything cured, realize, oh gosh, these magnets didn't fit, I used the Zap-A-Gap to cure it to the resin, and it worked beautifully, and it made the whole process a lot faster. So now I have 2 ways that I can attach magnets. I can either use an epoxy putty and maybe have it go a little slower, but I am definitively sure that those magnets, for the ones that did cure, are not coming out. Or I can go the faster route and go ahead and use the Zap-A-Gap, which honestly, in the future, when I'm not maybe using miniatures like Puppetswar stuff that has pre-drilled holes, is probably the route that I'm going to go, just because it'll make the overall like drilling portion feel like less tedious, because that will be the now time-consuming portion of it. So I'm very happy with how this all goes, and now let's take a look at how they look with all of their various options. They have been magnetized, and now I can swap their weapons as I want, and I am really actually very excited about that, because honestly, this is something that I've been kind of interested in getting into for a while, but I didn't really know where to begin, and honestly, having a product that allows me to just have a slotted space to be like, pop, that's where the magnet goes, here are the exact size that you definitely need for it, that's awesome, and I really applaud Puppet Wars for this sort of box design and everything of just basically having the kits go out like that. Super, super awesome. I really am interested in doing more of this though with miniatures that don't necessarily have these slots pre-drilled in it. So if you guys have done this yourselves, let me know in the comments below some tips and tricks that you may have to basically be able to do this to, say, my Games Workshop miniatures, because honestly, I really want to try magnetizing like a knight or something. I think that would be really cool and allow for me to have a bunch of different weapons options that I can do. Like I can basically run any loadout at that point, and I feel like I'm using the entire kit, which I think is awesome. So let me know some tips and tricks down below. But I've been Angela, like this has been a great experience for me, honestly. Like I had so much fun with this episode. I hope that you guys have too. Make sure that if you have, to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you guys next week for some more news, and hopefully by this point, Sigvald will have arrived and our date will no longer be delayed because of snow. So I'll see you guys then, and have a good one.